सुलभ रमा जय जय दुर्लभ रमा एक तू रामा जय जय एक तू रामा प्रातः स्मरामि हृदि संस्फुरदात्मतत्त्वं सच्चित्सुखं परमहंसगतिं तुरीयं यत्स्वप्नजागरसुषुप्तमवैति नित्यं तद्ब्रह्म निष्कलमहं न च भूतसङ्गः तपोभिक्षीणपापानां शान्तानां वीतरागिणां मुमुक्षूणामपेक्षोऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते बोधोऽन्यसाधनेभ्यो हि साक्षान्मोक्षैकसाधनं पाकस्य वह्निवज्ञानं विना मोक्षो न सिद्ध्यति। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। हरि ओम। Okay.
Hari Om everyone.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Start with questions.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, Hari Om. So, I think Rashmi ji is not in class, so her question we'll take up next time. Is Siddharth here? Siddharth ji? I don't think he's here, is he? Okay. Since Siddharth is not here, we'll just take up his question also in the next class, whenever he's here. Are there any other questions? If not, great. We get a full class of.
May I ask a question, please?
Anji?
May I ask a question, please? It's not related to the present context, but very something that has been an ongoing discussion with a couple of friends, and we're not getting a very clear answer on that. So if you could just help us, a very quick question. The question is like, we do get very affected by what the world view is about us. If someone says something, it may either inflate our ego or it may break us.
Yeah.
Yes, we all do understand, that each one of us is on our own journey. We do understand that some people are a victim of their own nature. They express their nature in different ways. But how is it that we need to protect ourselves and be in the state of equanimity where it shouldn't affect us to the extent of, losing a sleep over it? So we know a lot of it, but how to go about it is the problem.
No, you know a lot of what? You know what?
That we should not feel affected. We should not. We should just kind of disregard it. We should just look towards empathetically to the person who's saying it. You know, so the lot of things. But
We are very Gyanis, sir. We are very Gyanis.
So the reason I'm asking that is because you know that you should disregard it. I don't know why you say you should disregard it. I never disregard what the world says about me. You shouldn't disregard what the world says about you.
Okay.
But knowing that you should or should not, the should is not knowing. Should is just something you've been told. Oh, I've heard that I should not do this. That's why I'm asking you, what do you think you know? Knowing is why. When you know why you're doing something, that's when you actually know. So, first and foremost, um, one of the reasons we are overly affected by the world's perception of us is because of our ego. The ego is that which imagines itself to be this name and form, this body, mind, intellect with its attributes. And naturally, it is overly affected by the way in which it is perceived. This body, mind, intellect is perceived. So, the extent to which one is egoistic, to that extent, it will matter to them how they are perceived, right? Someone may say, no, I don't care what the world thinks about me, but everything they're doing is to show the world who they are. That's also ego. But one shouldn't necessarily disregard. What is required is objectivity. Now, objectivity comes with two things. One is to say that, see, the ego wants to establish supremacy. I am supreme. One thing is to say that I am not supreme. I am a work in progress. Right? There are so many who are below me and so many who are above me. More who are above me than below me. And मुख जो देखा आपना मुझसा बुरा ना कोई, says Kabira, right? So the moment I am introspective about my own qualities, I realize my own shortcomings. So that introspective nature, that self-analysis is what makes you clear about who you are and who you're not. The moment you're clear about who you are and who you're not, as opposed to what the ego wants to present itself as, what the ego wants to portray itself as. They're two very different things. One thing is self-analysis. When you're clear about your attributes, your good and your bad, because everyone is an admixture. Everyone is a work in progress, as opposed to just projecting something to the world. They're two very different things. One is egoistic and one is objective. And number two, understanding that neither is the person judging perfect. So neither are you perfect, neither are you supreme, nor is the person who is sitting there and passing a comment necessarily supreme. So whatever they say, always pass it through the filter of your buddhi. Never disregard what others say unnecessarily. If it is sensible, maybe accept their observation. See if it is something that you can work upon. But also take it with a pinch of salt. Understand that everyone has their own motives for saying things. Right? So, neither do we want to be extremely self-protective and disregard what the world has to say. Neither do we want to be extremely vain and pretentious to project ourselves as something as we are not. Beautiful quality of a jnani, unpretentiousness. A person on the path of knowledge is unpretentious. Why? Because they have gained this objectivity. They have gained this ability to analyze oneself, see where one is on their own journey, and also understand that perfection is the utopia. Right? We're all on the path, on our own journeys, and every avenue of life is an opportunity to go one step up. If one moves ahead with this attitude, then naturally the weightage that others' opinions or others' passing opinions will reduce. Right.
Yeah, it'll give you that stability to, to grasp it, I guess. Okay. So it was very beautifully said by one of my friends. Dekho, jano, or jane do. You know, I mean, this is very nicely said, and I think the way you've explained, kind of, I could relate more to that now. Makes sense. Thank you so very much.
Yeah. Okay. Verse number 8. Akshara Brahma Yoga. We're talking about what is Brahman and how is Brahman to be known at the time of death. Right? So here is a promise of the Lord that if you remember me at the time of your passing, you are sure to come to me. So beyond this incarnation, when it is time to leave the body and for your antakaran to migrate, as it were, where will it go? What will it do? It will go to a place more aligned, attuned to spiritual practice. Ultimately, it will go to the lotus feet of the Lord. That's the assurance of the Lord that you will come to me. And this is in line with what we have been discussing about the law of karma. As you think, so you become. The way in which you channel your thoughts and intentions, the way in which you channel your purpose, that is what will determine the next experience. Your desires, your thoughts determine where you take yourself. Right? So death is not altogether this anything altogether different from what you are experiencing right now. At each moment, you're going from one experience to another based on the most important thought, what you place on top. Right? Similarly, at the time of death, whatever you place on top, whatever is primary, is what will get the next expression. That's the assurance of the Lord. So, while he was speaking in a certain devotional language in verse number 6 and 7, in verse number 8, we saw him speaking in a more the language of a jnani, right? Where instead of personifying himself as God, he talked about that supreme resplendent being, that impersonal supreme resplendent being. So just as for a bhakta, you go to the lotus feet of the Lord. Similarly, for a jnani, the meditative jnani, one reaches that impersonal Brahman. Now, Brahman is something that is inconceivable. It's something that cannot be necessarily captured in an idea or a concept. One of the reasons why we personify Brahman as gods and goddesses is to make it more relatable. But to mistaken that identity as Brahman would be a mistake, would be placing a limitation. So all throughout, the tendency of humanity has been to place or limit God as that particular identity. Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, or even grosser forms like Krishna, Rama. Naturally, a lot of sampradayas and traditions have been built around them. Each one starting to believe that, oh, that form is supreme, that deity is supreme. But that would be defeating the very purpose of the deity itself. Interestingly, when we think of God, one of the terms we use often is Bhagavan, right? We think, what is God? In Hinduism we have Bhagavan. Bhagavan is God. But is Bhagavan God? What is Bhagavan? Bhagavan is that which possesses the bhagas. Bhagavan is that which possesses the bhagas, just as Balwan is that which possesses bala, which is strength, right? Jnanvan is that which possesses knowledge. So similarly, Bhagavan is Bhagavan is that which possesses the 6 bhagas. And what are the 6 bhagas? Aishwaryam, Viryam, Yash, Shri, Jnanam, and Vairagyam. Aishwaryam means fame, Viryam means strength, Aishwarya means power, Yash means strength, Viryam means strength, Yash means fame. Shri means one can take it in the form of wealth or beauty, however one would interpret it as. Jnana means knowledge, and ultimately Vairagyam. Vairagya means a sense of dispassion. These are the 6 bhagas. One who possesses the 6 bhagas in infinite capacity, all power, all strength, all fame, all beauty, all wealth, all knowledge, all renunciation, that which possesses it in an infinite capacity. So any being that displays these virtues in an incomprehensible capacity, that is reflecting the form of the Lord, as it were. That's the idea, right? So this is one way in which something incomprehensible has been tried to been made comprehensible. So throughout our tradition, throughout our culture, the effort has been made to explain the incomprehensible, right? And naturally we've come up with forms, we've come up with ideas, we've come up with deities, with hundreds of concepts. And that's what you will see again in verse number 9 and 10. He's going to try to define what is that Brahman, right? So for the devotee, you give a form, you create a form, but for a jnani, you try to use subtle intellectual concepts, right? These subtle definitions, all of these being pointers to what is eventually incomprehensible, to give you an idea, to give you an inkling, as they say, to what is this supreme resplendent being. What is Brahman? We've just simply said Akshara Brahma, Paramam. But what is that Akshara? What is that Param Brahma? Right? So in verse number 9, he'll give us some indicative definitions of what is Brahman. This is feast for the jnanis, right? This is food for thought for the jnanis. Verse number 9. Kavim Puranamanushasitaram Anoraniya Samarusmaredyah Sarvasya Dhataramachintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasah Parastat. Kavim Puranamanushasitaram Anoraniya Samanusmaredyah Sarvasya Dhataramachintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasah Parastat. So, he who meditates upon the omniscient, Kavim, Puranaha, ancient, Anushasitaram, the all-ruler, Anoraniyam Sam, minuter than the minute, Sarvasya Dhataram, supporter of all, Achintya Rupam, inconceivable form, Aditya Varnam, effulgent as the sun, and Tamasah Parastat, beyond darkness. We are used to thinking of God in the form of a Rama or a Krishna or a Hanuman or a Ganapati or a Vishnu or what. But those who seek beyond form, those who seek what is the ideal behind the idol, what is being represented, those who are not satisfied with devotional concepts, or that part of you which is not fulfilled by a devotional concept. It could be, both could be true, right? Everybody has a combination of bhakti and jnanam in them. So to cater to that jnani in you, these beautiful definitions are given. First of all, what is that supreme resplendent being? He says it is Kavim, it is omniscient. Kavim literally means Kavi, right? And we know in Hindi what is Kavi. Kavi means the poet. Now I want you to take a second to appreciate this. He's calling Brahman the poet. Brahman, the source of all, as the poet. And this entire creation is a poetry. The poet knows the entire poem. The poet is the all knowing of this entire poem. Such a beautiful, subtle way of conveying something that is omniscient. See, Swamiji is translated as omniscient, but why is the translation as omniscient? One should think about it. What is Kavi and what is omniscience? Omniscient in English means all knowing. But how is it all knowing? Because you are the very composer of this creation. This entire created world is a composition. It's a melody, it's a symphony. And the composer, the poet, is Brahman. That unseen hand, that avyakt from which all of this has become vyakt. See, these are all related concepts. So the moment you read this, and more in which you read this is not definitions for you to ratta maro and then repeat somewhere else. Right? These are all indicative definitions to stir in you a sense of contemplation. It should make your buddhi fire. It should make you go into a stream of contemplation. I can tell you that because the first 4-5 times I read Kavim, I was like, Kavim. Over a period of time, it turns you more and more contemplative as you read it more, right? So, Kavi, it's the composer of this beautiful universe, the all-knowing consciousness, the pure consciousness with which everything else is known. Puranam, if you want to put a date to it, how did it come about? When did it come about? What is the cause of this consciousness? Why did consciousness create the world? No one knows. It's Purana. It's ancient. Means it's before your very conception of time. It's before the very conception of time. That's the meaning of something that is Purana. Anushasitaram. It's the ruler of the world. So Brahman is given this position of being Anushasitaram. That unseen hand which is managing everything. All the laws of this world, be they material laws, psychological laws, biological laws, spiritual laws, this entire world is a beautiful expression of several laws of nature. Without it, this world will not function. Without it, this cosmos would be a chaos. It's a cosmos, it's not a chaos. So what is that unseen hand? Surely something must be managing it. So that designation is given to Brahman. It's the ruler of the world. All these laws function based on the guarantee, the assurance of this unseen hand. This is the monarch. Anushasitaram. But the moment you think of monarch, the moment you think of all these definitions, you think if it is something extremely big, something extremely powerful. But here he says, minuter than the minute. Minuter than the minute means smaller than the smallest thing you can imagine. So here he is challenging you to convey this idea of all pervasiveness. You think of it as something that is big and grand, but no, it's actually an all-pervading essence because it's minuter than the minute. It is not only big and grand in terms of ruling this entire cosmos, but it is there in every speck. It penetrates every speck. It's in the core of your being. This indivisible Brahman is there in the core of your being as Atman. It's minuter than the minute. Pervading everything, it is supporting all. It is that canvas upon which this painting of the world has been created. It's that Aadhar upon which everything is supported. It's the Sarvasya Dhataram. Sarvasya Dhataram. It's the supporter of everything. It is that foundation upon which everything is built. Now nobody sees the foundation, everyone sees the building. But what is the foundation upon which this building is standing? Everyone sees the gunas, but what is that which is supporting the gunas? Everyone sees Prakriti, but what is the Purusha which is supporting it? Sarvasya Dhataram. Now we break it up into all these concepts: Prakriti, Purusha, Aadhar, all pervading, omniscient. All of these are concepts we are trying to convey something that is actually inconceivable, Achintya Rupam. All of these concepts are to stir your contemplation so that you become introvert, so that you turn meditative. Not for you to sit with a badge of honor. Yes, I have understood God. Yadi manyase suvedeti no na vedeti vedache. Beautiful lines from the Kena Upanishad. Yadi manyase suvedeti no na vedeti vedache. If you think you've got it, if you think you've understood it, you've not understood anything. Because it is achintya. It is beyond your understanding. It is inconceivable. What have you understood? The moment you say, this is God, yes, my God has Chaturbhuja, has 4 hands. Not got anything. Achintya Rupam. Aditya Varnam. This blazing, dazzling, effulgent as the sun. See, throughout our tradition, we are essentially a pagan tradition, right, in that sense. Now, I know this has a negative connotation in the Abrahamic world, being a pagan tradition, but all our inspiration has been from nature. And so many of our deities are actually representations of these forces of nature. One of the primary deities of our pantheon is Surya Devta, the Aditya, right? So Surya Devta has been the source of our worship, just as Agni has been the source of our worship, just as Varun has been the source of our worship. So Aditya Varnam, the effulgence of the sun, the magnificence of the sun, that which sheds light on everything. I'm in South India right now. And I've been noticing every morning we're having class at 7 a.m. When I was in Delhi, it was pitch dark at 7 a.m. Then I was in Goa at 7 a.m. There was a little bit of a, dawn was breaking. Now in Kerala, there was already a sun at 7 a.m. This all pervading sun, spreading its infinite rays. Inconceivable. All effulgent. So, effulgent as the sun. That sun is the very source of effulgence. It's the very source of light. You don't need anything else to see the sun. The sun itself is self-effulgent. Means it is the source of light and it is seen by its own light. Anything else which is not effulgent requires an external light to be seen, requires an external light to be known. Now I'm explaining what it means to be effulgent as the sun. It's a very subtle concept. The sun is self-effulgent, which means it doesn't require anything else to be seen. It is seen by its own light. Similarly, Atman, Brahman, God, is not something that is to be known by some other form of knowledge. Just like you don't need other light to see the sun. It is self-effulgent. It is the very source of light. It is the very source of knowing. It is the very source of consciousness. That's what it means. Aditya Varnam. Brahman is that consciousness itself. It is that pure consciousness. That which is known by itself and that with which everything is known. Just like the sun is that which lights itself and the light with which everything else is seen. That's the idea. Aditya Varnam. Tamasah Parastat. And this light is what lights up everything else. It removes all darkness. It lifts you up from this ignorance that you are in. This pure consciousness with which you are able to rise above all ignorance. If you come onto the path of seeking Brahman, you will rise above all the darkness in your life. Right? So again, a lot more can be said, and we can, depending on your capacity to contemplate, you can spend more and more time on this. Right? It's something that you have to internalize. These are ideas with which you have to sit. These are concepts which you have to bring to cognition. This is what God actually is in that sense. Right? This is God. So if it stirs you, if it stirs your contemplation, sit with it. And if not, we'll come back to it to get a better understanding. But these are some beautiful indicative definitions. And he continues in verse number 10. Prayana kale manasa chalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva Bhruvor madhye pranamaveshya samyak satam param purushamupaiti divyam Prayana kale manasa chalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva Bhruvor madhye pranamaveshya samyak satam param purushamupaiti divyam At the time of death. So he's still continuing on that stream of thought. How am I to be known at the time of death? So he says, at the time of death, with steady mind and devotion, united by power of yoga, and only by fixing the prana perfectly in the middle of the two eyebrows, he reaches that supreme, resplendent being. So now he's talking from the perspective of yoga. He's giving a point of yogic concentration. So for a jnani, this yogic concentration is recommended. So how he said that you have to remember me at the time of death. Now he's talking about how you remember me at the time of death. Means with what awareness, right? And with what focus. He's giving you an asana, essentially, with which you sort of maintain that thought and maintain that concentration, right? So we've said that the only way you are going to be able to think of the Lord at the time of death is only if you've cultivated the thought of the Lord throughout your life. If you move with the thought of the Lord through all your experiences, if you invoke this sense of contemplation of these subtle, inconceivable attributes in your day-to-day life, only then will, at the time of death, this thought actually occur to you. And not only occur to you, but stay with you. So at the time of death, with steady mind, most of us cannot even imagine having a steady mind. The very thought of death creates an unsteady mind. मेरा क्या होगा? मेरे बच्चों का क्या होगा? मेरे इसका क्या होगा? मेरे उसका क्या होगा? Only when you've reached a certain stage of spiritual maturity can you have a steady mind at this time of eventuality. So with steady mind and devotion, as you said again and again, devotion is not something that suddenly springs up in you. It has to be slowly cultivated. Devotion is a beautiful garden which you have to cultivate with your tapas. Devotion just doesn't come. So, at the time of death, with steady mind and devotion, united by the power of yoga, by yoga asana, and by fixing the prana perfectly in the middle of the two eyebrows. So you bring your entire concentration in this meditative sense, in this meditative voice, in between the two eyebrows. So if you can have that state of concentration in that eventual moment, this is the recommendation. So take notes. So whenever it happens, this is how we have to remember the Lord in this yogic concentration. But to be able to do this, what's going to allow us to do this? Only when our mind is steady and filled with devotion. So to fill our mind with devotion and to turn it steady, we need to cultivate yoga throughout our life. Karma yoga, bhakti yoga, jnana yoga throughout our life, so that our minds can be steady and filled with devotion. Only then will we be able to sit perfectly. Sit is symbolic. Sit means steady. Even if you're lying down, it's okay. I don't know. But the idea is that you're in the state of meditativeness and your entire concentration. There's no other thought. Ananya Chinta. This is how we go to that supreme, resplendent being. Verse number 11. Yadaksharam veda vido vadanti vishanti yadyatayo vitaragaha yadichanto brahmacharyam charanti tatte padam samgrahena pravakshe. Yadaksharam veda vido vadanti vishanti yadyatayo vitaragaha yadichanto brahmacharyam charanti tatte padam samgrahena pravakshe. That which the knowers of the Veda Vida, what they call Aksharam, that which the knowers of the Veda called Aksharam, imperishable, that which ascetics freed from passion enter, that desiring which they practice Brahmacharya. That goal I will declare to you in brief. So once again, he's going to try another angle, another approach, another attempt at pile driving this idea of the inconceivable Brahman. That Brahman which is declared as Akshara, imperishable. That Brahman which is God, which is Atman, Adhyatma Swabhava. The Swabhava of Brahman itself is Atman. So that Atman, which is minuter than the minute, in the core of your being, which is Brahman, which is imperishable. So what is Atman? Atman is that within you which is imperishable. Another stream of contemplation. Who am I? You are the Atman. What is the Atman? Atman is that which is imperishable. That means everything that is perishable is not Atman. Whatever is changing, whatever is fleeting, whatever has a beginning and an end is not your Atman. That is a temporary nama rupa that you have acquired. So that which the Veda, the very source of knowledge, the powerhouse of knowledge, declares it as the imperishable Akshara. And reaching this Akshara, realizing this Akshara is the spiritual path. What else is it? To reach the spirit. Huh? I am very spiritual, but I am not religious. Sorry, what are you trying to reach? What is the spirit? The Vedas call it imperishable. See, in our tradition, I mean, in the world today, we confuse the word soul with spirit, with Antakaran, we confuse these things. What is the spirit? And what does it mean to be spiritual? To seek the spirit means to be spiritual. And what is the spirit? The spirit is not something, this personality within us. उसकी आत्मा को शांति मिले. When someone passes, people say, उसकी आत्मा को शांति मिले. It is amusing when people say that. Of course, that is not a time to be amused. But when else will we be amused? We have all these ideas of, okay, there is something called a soul. We borrowed this term called soul. Whatever that means. I don't know what people mean by soul. Most likely people are referring to Antahkaran, the Sukshma Sharira or the Karana Sharira. That's what they refer to when they mean soul. And that is distinct from spirit, Atman. Atman is beyond the Sukshma Sharira. Atman is beyond the Karana Sharira. So are you following the spiritual path or are you following the soul path? Most people are following the soul path, not the spiritual path. But those ascetics who seek the spirit, they are truly spiritual. They who are freed from passion, pursue that. That which ascetics freed from passion enter. Those who have taken up the path of brahmacharya, desiring which they practice brahmacharya, a life of regulation and moderation. Why? Because without regulation and moderation, your indulgences will waste your life away. There's no end to indulgence. There's no end to seeking pleasure through indulgence. But if you want to seek the self, you have to place all of this in the back seat. That doesn't mean you have to give up on enjoyments in life. They just have to take a back seat. Means they don't have to be the primary goal. Yes, if life gives you enjoyment, no doubt, no, there's no problem. But the practice should be, if less be possible, with less. That's brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is that practice of regulation, moderation, restraint. The world will always throw you lollipops to indulge, especially in the world we live in today. It's so easy to indulge. And the moment you indulge, you enter a rabbit hole. It saps your energy. So thousands of years ago, for thousands of years, we have understood in this tradition that if you seriously wish to seek the spirit, if you seriously wish to be on this path, you have to practice a life of regulation and moderation. Now, if your celibacy, if your brahmacharya is too extreme, it won't help. The same Bhagavad Gita says that this path is not for one who eats too little or eats too less. So brahmacharya is not complete abstinence. It's not putting, shackling yourself into frustration. No, it's a regulation. Eating the right amount, drinking the right amount, seeing the right amount, feeling the right amount. Now, what is the right amount for you? That your buddhi has to determine. So life of regulation and moderation is what will keep you established on the spiritual path. And through your tapas, you will eventually attain the spirit. Now we've talked endlessly about that path, the path from bhoga to yoga to uparati to dharan to dhyan. That's the journey. And when you reach that state of dhyanam, through dhyanam, you enter the imperishable, the akshara. So that which the nose of the Vedas call the imperishable, that which the ascetics freed from passion enter. But to enter it, they have to be established on this path, and for which, desiring which, they practice brahmacharya. That goal, that supreme resplendent being, that Brahman, I will describe to you in brief. He's saying it in brief, but actually he's giving us, he's overloading us. He's overloading us with ideas and concepts. It's too much of heavy lifting. What is this Brahman? Achintya Rupam. He continues, verse number 12 and 13. Sarvadvarani samyamya manoridi nirudhya cha मूर्ध्या धाता मनः प्राणम आस्थितो योग धारणा ओमित्येकाक्षरं ब्रह्म व्याहरन् मामुनस्मरन् यः प्रयाति त्यजन् देहं स याति परमां गतिम्. So having controlled all gates, having confined the mind in the heart, having fixed his pranas in the head, established in yogic concentration, reciting Brahman, the one-syllabled Om, remembering me, he who departs leaving the body attains the supreme goal. So he briefly mentioned the yogic concentration in verse number 10. Here in 12 and 13, he's elaborating on that asana. So at the time of death. Now again, death is symbolic. Please don't think you have to only do it at the end. In fact, the real death, the actual death is not the death of this body. देहांत में तो कुछ नहीं होता. आप एक बॉडी छोड़ रहे हो, दूसरा बॉडी धारण कर रहे हो. देहांत तो देह का अंत है, वो आपके अहंकार का तो अंत नहीं है. So death is not dehant. The actual death is death of the ego. If one were to actually, double click on this, what is death? Nonetheless, since everyone is focused on this idea of leaving the body, he says, while leaving the body, he who departs leaving the body, reciting Brahman. How do you recite Brahman? Through the mantra, Om. Om is the subtlest symbol, the subtlest representation, the simplest representation of Brahman. So you can remember in all sorts of forms, you can remember through all sorts of mantras, depending on your sadhana, depending on your isht, depending on your diksha. But that universal mantra for one and all is simply Om. Om is the subtlest idol, it's the subtlest form representing Brahman. But there are some prerequisites for this. You can't just leave the body reciting Om and assume that you'll be able to do all of this. No. Having controlled all gates, having confined the mind in the heart, having fixed his prana in the head, having become established in yogic concentration. To become established in this concentration, in this dharana, you have to control all gates. What is the gates? Again, a beautiful symbolism given to the body.
Navadwari.
The body is the city of 9 gates. In chapter number 17 or 16, end of 16, he calls it the Navadwara. The body, the city of 9 gates. And here he says Sarvadwara, means all the gates of what? The gates of the body. All the gates are through which the world enters you. You have 2 gates out here, you have 2 gates out here, you have 2 gates out here, you have 1 gate out here, and you have 2 more gates. The sexual organ and the excretory organ. So 7, 8, 9, the city of 9 gates, through which you connect with the world. through which either the world enters you or you contact back the world. Stimuli enters you and you respond or you react back to stimuli. Now, if these gates are not controlled, you're said to be in a state of indulgence. Uncontrolled gates means indulgence. Controlled gates means brahmacharya. Uncontrolled gates means indulgence. Controlled gates means brahmacharya. So through brahmacharya, having controlled all gates, having lived a life of regulation and moderation, wherein you call the shots, not your senses. Your senses don't determine what should be done or what should not be done. If you want to allow the senses some pleasure, by all means, but you shouldn't be a victim of them. You shouldn't be a slave of them. Having confined the mind and the heart, turned introvert, the mind which is asthira, which is chanchal, which is extrovert, which is jumping around from place to place, to confine it to the heart means to have turned introvert, to have overcome the host of extroverted desires, which requires all the karma bhakti jnana. So through brahmacharya, karma bhakti jnana, you come to a place where your concentration, you're sitting in meditative concentration, fixing your prana in between the head. This is where your attention is. Your attention is not everywhere else. So this is the prerequisite if you want to finally, at the time of death, remember me. So Arjuna asked a simple question. This long winding answer was given by the Lord. Again, I hope this reiterates to you that it's not so simple to do. And it won't be so simple that only at the time of death suddenly we'll put on some Krishna bhajan and we'll remember the Lord. At the time of your death, someone will put on a Krishna bhajan and you'll be like, "No, ye mera favorite bhajan nahi hai." You won't have time only. Put on some other bhajan. You'll be complaining there also. Forget concentration. Forget meditativeness. All to reiterate that this is a lifetime preparation. Okay, not so simple. If it was so simple, then we wouldn't need all of this Bhagavad Gita and everything, right? And now, just to add salt to the wound, I'm saying it's not so easy, but to add salt to the wound, he says in verse number 14, we'll conclude with this verse. Ananya cheta satatam, Ananya cheta satatam, yo mam smarati nityashah, tasyaham sulabhah partha, nityayuktasya yoginah. Ananya cheta satatam, yo mam smarati nityashah, tasyaham sulabham partha, nityayuktasya yoginah. To add salt to the wounds, to make us even feel more silly about ourselves, he says, I am easily attainable. Sulabh. I am easily attainable. What nonsense. Don't joke with me. He's joking with us. But he clarifies, I am easily attainable by whom? By that ever steadfast yogi, whose mind constantly and continuously thinks of me without any other thought. This is what you need to remember. This final moment of yogic concentration will only be possible and will be very easy for they whose mind throughout their life constantly and continuously thinks of the Lord. Ananya Chinta. So you don't need to go anywhere. We're not trying to impose our opinion on a certain concept. The Lord himself is saying it. What he said in verse number 5, he's himself clarifying in verse number 14 that it's not so simple, but it is only simple when you have Ananya Chinta. I am easily attainable through this yogic concentration by that dedicated, steadfast yogi who cultivates Ananya Chinta through Karma Bhakti Jnana, who shifts the very attention, the very predisposition to the thought of me, who meets every experience in life with the remembrance of the Lord. O Partha. Beautiful that he's addressing Arjuna as Partha, as a dear one, as a child, right? As a dear one, as someone who's close to him. So with endearment, he's telling Partha that this is the way. This is how you get. This is how you finally reach me. With that thought, we'll conclude today. Yes, Rashiji, you have a question.
I'm a little confused. I did not get it very clearly because there were a few verses which were a treat to a jnani when you just recited those verses about the concept of Brahman. But at the time of demise, I mean, Dehant, a person who's in constant, thought of God. So that's more like a that's more like a bhakta, who's always been into this mode of remembering God. So, to reconcile both, I find it very difficult to understand because a jnani would not give I don't know how to put it, but he will not give
See, what you're confusing is that because you're seeing it as different things, they're not actually different things.
probably.
First of all, as you said, that there's a jnani in you and there is a bhakta in you,
Yes.
right? So they're varying in proportion. The extent to which you need a personal deity as opposed to an impersonal concept. Brahman is an impersonal concept.
Right.
Personified into a deity is a Krishna or a Vishnu
Right.
or a Shiva. So if you're a devotee, you will say Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Right.
If you're a jnani, you'll just say Om.
Oh, got it.
Whatever appeals to you. Whatever, see, the form helps us remember the formless. The idol helps us to grasp and hold on to the ideal. When you hold a flag of India, you feel enthused with a sense of nationalism.
Right.
Similarly, when the form is in front of you, you feel completely, it invokes that complete sense of connection with the divinity. So if saying Om is not sufficient for you, that's why we say Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya or Om Namah Shivaya. However, that's as per your sadhana, as per your isht, as per your wherever you have cultivated that. And you know what? It may change over time.
Yes. Yes.
It may change over time. you know, uh, I can tell you for myself that I didn't come from a very devotional direction. I didn't have a particular connection with the form, but one can see the need for that and the need for that growing in its own way. So it changes. It's not that it doesn't change overnight, but it evolves over time, right? So whatever inspires you, that's why it's a buffet. It's an assortment, it's a buffet. Sanatan Dharma is not a la carte, it's a buffet. You don't have to choose one. But all of this represents the same ideal. That's what's important to understand. Yes. Vijayji.
You referred to a soul when the people say, may your the soul rest in peace, which is very, very common in Christians in the Western world. What do you think is their reason for saying that, one? And second, in our context, what would be the appropriate message if somebody passes away? Do you say Om Shanti, or is there any better expression that one could be using?
Now, I don't see. Again, I'm not an expert in Abrahamic theology, but the reason one says rest in peace is because, at least as per my understanding, when a person of that particular faith passes, first of all, you don't cremate the body. You either sort of bury it, right, or you put it in a coffin. The idea is what? That on the day of judgment, they will rise up and then fly to heaven. Okay, now I've said it in very brief, but sort of there are many sort of mythological sort of concepts around this. So it's rest in peace until the day of judgment. Okay, so when you're telling a Christian, when they pass, when you're saying rest in peace, what you're actually saying is rest in peace underground until the day of judgment, when you will, I don't know how, or when a composted version of you will rise up and go to heaven. Anyway, I don't mean to make light of it, but that's what, at least I think, it means to say rest in peace, right? We have done some khichdi because we believe something else. We've taken a little bit of Vedanta and a little bit of Christianity and said, okay, there's a soul which, does some soul searching. So may that be peaceful. That's what we've taken it to mean. And then we say, rest in peace, rest in peace. And nowadays I'm seeing people say Om Shanti, Om Shanti. And I think, partly that's inspired by this also, because we can't come out of this idea of Shanti. Right? Shanti is like a borrowed term from peace only. What else is it? What do you mean by Om Shanti? Actually, when someone passes, you say Om Shanti for the person who's left behind. आपको शांति मिले. जो चले गए वो तो चले गए ना. See, there's no one, at least I haven't found something, that is.
Sorry to interrupt, Utsav. Once you had told me that we should say Sadgati Prapto.
Correct.
Oh,
I'm
almost
coming to that. So, हम कभी कभार कहते हैं कि सदगति प्राप्त हो, but what is the reason for that, right? And I prefer to say, may the departed have a comfortable passage, right? Because we believe that it is a continuous journey, unless they've already attained samadhi and mahasamadhi, right? If you've attained samadhi, if you've attained the exit from this cycle of birth and death, until that you are continuing on this passage of birth and death, and so may your passage be safe. There are many concepts in our tradition which talk about how, depending on your karmas, your passage may face a little bit of hiccups. That's why we talked about the Garud Puran, right? In the Garud Puran, they say all sorts of things. If you've lived a terrible life, then all these terrible things will happen to you in your passage. But if you've lived a life dedicated to truth, then you'll meet death peacefully. The passage will be. So that's why you pray for their safe passage, right? Because understanding that this antakaran, this sukshma sharira, is continuing its journey and finding a next body. And in that body, hopefully they will do more sadhana and move closer to the truth, ultimately concluding in samadhi or moksha. Right? Now, it's not that just by our wishes they will attain moksha. They have to put in their own effort for moksha. But you wish them well. they made an honest, sincere effort and they lived to the best of their abilities in this lifetime, and may they continue doing that in their endeavor eventually to attain moksha. That's the idea. That's the thought behind your wishes and prayers. Okay, Siddharth ji, yes, you're here. We didn't take up your question in the beginning.
Yes, I joined a bit late.
Okay. So is that you want to ask that question only, or you want to ask something else right now?
No, the same question.
Okay. Your question was, since I have started this journey, which is very recently though, the moment I see anyone in a negative emotion, whether it's anger, jealousy, sorrow, the first thought that creeps into my mind is, poor him, he is going through it because he is not walking the path that I am on. Unconsciously, I get into comparison mode and judge myself better than him. Is that ego? That's also ego, right? Yes, it is ego. It is very much ego. It is a big fat ego, but you also get brownie points for recognizing that it's ego. Is this normal in the initial stage, or am I stepping in the wrong paddle? Look, it's very normal in a sense that the first impact of is, first of all, you have to, I'm glad you asked this question, because pause and appreciate that the ego creeps into anything you do.
Right? Yes.
The ego usurps. There's a word in English called usurp, USURP. It usurps anything you do. It takes credit for it. Now, in this spiritual path, you're trying to kill the ego, but the ego is saying, "Look, I am on the path to kill myself, to kill the ego, and I'm so great." It's the first lesson we study in the Vedanta Academy. When you start the 3-year course, the first lesson is a poem called "The Turkey and the Ant," in which a turkey, a turkey, not the country turkey, the bird.
The bird, yes.
Bird, turkey is talking to another bird, turkey. Two turkeys are talking and they're complaining. Look at these humans, look at these terrible creatures. Thanksgiving is coming. They're going to be culling us left, right, and center. What cruel creatures. May God punish them. So two turkeys are complaining. The poem is called Turkey and the Ant. So one ant watches them and it climbs up a rock and says, "Hey, Mr. Turkey, what are you complaining about? What are you complaining about? You're complaining about humans killing you once a year. You kill hundreds of us every day." So, ere thee mark another sin, bid thine own conscience look within. Famous lines from the poem, the two most important lines from the poem. Ere thee mark another sin, bid thine own conscience look within. The moment you see another person's negative emotions, before you jump to judge them, recognize the same tendency within you magnified. Are you free from anger? Are you free from jealousy? Are you free from any of these negativities? If you were free, you wouldn't be on the spiritual path. You'll be a jnani. The reason you're stepping onto the spiritual path is because you want to rid yourself of these. So that means you yourself are a victim of these. Right?
Okay.
So understand that two things. Whatever negativity there is in the other, there is multifold, manifold in me. Just like a turkey, a human eats one turkey, but a single turkey eats hundreds of ants. So that same sin is manifold in me. Mujhsa bura na koi, as Kabira says, right? And secondly, there's so much good in the worst of us, there's so much bad in the best of us. There's so much good in the worst of us, there's so much bad in the best of us. Everyone is an admixture. It will serve you a lot more on this very journey which you have said you have started. It will serve you a lot more if you see what you can take, what you can learn from others rather than what you can criticize in others.
Beautiful. Yes, got it.
Right? So, whenever your ego comes up with this thought, shut it out with these two thoughts. The same is there in me manifold, and how can I actually help myself on this journey? By taking what is good in them. Right? I think if you do these two things, then you will be able to eventually free yourself from, especially on this path of any journey, anybody on any journey, they develop an ego about it. It's really funny.
Yes, yes, it happens, and quite times, I assume that there's a thin line between pride and ego.
So pride is ego.
Okay.
Pride is ego. See, why do we feel the need to be proud?
Ah,
Because the very fact that you've been given an opportunity to live and an opportunity to seek is sufficient. Every living being in that sense is sufficient, is pride, is praiseworthy in that sense. But we think no, only doing this or doing something specific makes us more praiseworthy. That's where pride comes from. Oh, I am doing something different, or I am doing something greater, I'm doing something better. So pride is ego.
got it. Thank you.
I can tell you from at least 15 years of being in spiritual circles that I have met far more, or I have met many truly spiritual people who wear no cloak of spirituality, who don't come across as quote unquote spiritual. And I've met many people who are wearing the cloak of spirituality but are extremely insecure people. And for them, as Adi Shankaracharya says, they're doing this just to fill their belly. Huh? So don't judge a book by its cover. Empathy is very important. If someone is going through a certain emotion, that doesn't automatically disqualify them from being spiritual. Right? Maybe there's a certain circumstance which has got the better of them, and there's so much more to them, deeper than what is coming to the surface right now. So have that empathy. It's very important. It will only help you on this journey that you have taken. Yep.
Yes. Thank you.
Indeed. But thank you for the question, and it's very important. It's very true. It's very true, and this is a message to everyone, speaker included. Any kind of pride or any kind of ego, I am on the path. Huh? Your life is the path, yeah. You have not done anything special. Your life is the path. Before coming on to this path, also you were on the path. Life is a spiritual journey. The spiritual path is not something separate. Everyone is on the path. You have just started singing a certain kind of hymn. That's it. Naya naya mulla bahut namaz padhta hai, as they say, right?
So true.
Okay, ji, Hari Om. Thank you so much. We'll see you.
Hariom.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you.